Belief has proven to be one of humanity's most flexible and unpredictable inventions. Systems of thought can form around nearly anything: a sacred mountain, a whispered prophecy, a vision in the desert, or the memory of a long-dead ancestor. Some grow slowly over centuries, others erupt almost overnight. Their pantheons might be bloated with dozens of gods, or entirely absent of deities. Their rituals might demand silence, blood, purity, isolation, intoxication. Even when two systems grow side by side, sharing culture and language, they can diverge sharply, emphasizing different virtues, inventing new myths, and redrawing the lines of what is sacred. The diversity is staggering and often incompatible. That's what makes belief so fascinating. It reflects not just who people honor, but how they think the world works at all. But every now and then, a strange pattern appears. You can take 2 or 3 systems of belief that have no connection, no shared ancestry, no possibility of contact, and when you dig beneath their surface, you find that they are built in almost the exact same shape. Not in the names of their gods or the symbols they use, but in the architecture of their ideas. They solve the same problems in the same way. They create their worlds from the same conceptual materials. They arrive independently at the same blueprint for the universe. These alignments are rare, but when they occur, they offer a glimpse into something deeper, a recurring rhythm in how humans try to explain existence. This comparison is built on that idea. It looks at 3 belief systems that should have nothing in common. One arose in ancient Persia, another among the Navajo people of the American Southwest, and the third across the ocean in the forests of New Zealand. Their names, rituals, and myths are wildly different. Their languages are unrelated. Their cosmologies unfold in unique ways.
Yes.
But each of them begins with the same premise, that the world did not begin with violence or accident, but with speech. That language, sacred, careful, structured, was the tool of creation, and that to maintain the balance of the world, people must continue to speak it. These systems do not just honor gods, they honor words. In them, chant is architecture. Recitation is structure. Sound becomes form. Through their comparison, something unexpected begins to emerge, not just a mirror across cultures, but a shared instinct for how the universe might be built. The beliefs commonly known today as Zoroastrianism first took shape in the region of Greater Iran, likely sometime between 1500 and 1000 BCE, though scholarly estimates vary. The person credited with articulating its core teachings is Zarathustra, known in Greek as Zoroaster, a priest, reformer, and visionary whose original message would eventually take hold across the Achaemenid Empire and influence major world faiths. He was born into a polytheistic culture that revered natural forces through rituals involving animal sacrifice and hallucinogenic drink. But Zarathustra's teachings rejected this practice. He introduced a streamlined vision of cosmic order centered not around many quarreling gods, but around a single, wise force, Ahura Mazda. His reforms appear in the oldest part of the Avesta, a series of sacred hymns known as the Gathas, composed in an ancient East Iranian dialect and passed down orally for generations. Before being written, these beliefs developed in a landscape of ritual specialists, tribal federations, and oral transmission. Zarathustra's teachings caught on not because they promised conquest or prosperity, but because they offered a universe that made moral sense. In a time of fragmented traditions and political shifts, the idea of a structured cosmos where right speech aligned the world and wrong speech threatened it gave people not just a way to worship, but a framework for understanding existence. The Achaemenid Empire circa 550 to 330 BCE, particularly under rulers like Darius I, institutionalized this belief system and projected it as a tool of imperial unity. Temples were built, rituals were standardized, fire became central, yet the deeper philosophy remained. The world is fragile, and its survival depends on the exactness of word and thought. Zoroastrian belief begins with order and opposition. It does not describe a chaotic eruption or a pantheon of clashing gods. It opens with two forces. One, creative wise. and truthful, Ahura Mazda, and one destructive, ignorant, and deceitful, Angra Mainyu. These are not co-equal deities, but primal realities. Ahura Mazda creates not by force, but through Asha, a principle that means truth, order, and alignment. The world is not hammered into place, it is declared into existence. The cosmos is a linguistic structure. The Gathas are not commandments or law codes. They are lyrical arguments, poetic dialogues between Zarathustra and the divine, delivered in a tight, complex meter that emphasizes clarity and symmetry. They must be recited correctly because the shape of their sound matters. Each phrase reaffirms a metaphysical architecture. These hymns form the core of a much larger liturgical body, the Avesta, which includes later additions like the Yasna, the Visparad, and the Vendidad. The texts grew over centuries and were preserved by trained priests called Athravans, who specialized in exact recitation. Writing was considered too unstable for sacred knowledge. Only the mouth, trained over years, could reliably maintain the universe. Creation in this belief system is staged. Ahura Mazda first fashions a spiritual prototype, a perfect non-physical version of the world. Then he brings forth its material counterpart, light, fire, water, earth, plants, animals, and finally the first human, Gayamart. Each creation reflects both physical properties and moral dimensions. Fire is not just fire. It is the principle of illumination and discernment. Water is not just for drinking. And each good creation is immediately shadowed by its opposite. Angra Mainyu unleashes decay, drought, disease, and lies. The war between them is not a battlefield of bodies, it is a contest of principles. The Yasna ritual, central to Zoroastrian practice, is structured around this logic. Priests recite long verses while preparing offerings, usually involving water, milk, and the sacred plant hauma. These recitations are not prayers in the modern sense, they are maintenance. When spoken correctly, they reinforce the structure of the world. If mangled, they endanger it. The ritual space is meticulously cleaned. Silence is observed. Breath and tone are controlled. The sacred fire kept burning in temples is not symbolic, it is alive with meaning. It consumes impure offerings, radiates order, and listens. Pure speech can offend it. Pure speech strengthens it. Moral life is also built on a triad: good thoughts, good words, good deeds. This isn't metaphorical. Each layer maps to a level of being. Thought is the origin. Deed. Word gives it shape. Deed manifests it. To speak wrongly is not a minor sin. It is a metaphysical injury. It introduces Druge's falsehood into a cosmos meant to operate by Asha. Even daily speech matters. Honesty, clarity, precision. These aren't etiquette. They are survival mechanisms. Angra Mainyu, the adversary, has no army. Its weapon is the lie. He spreads it through deception, confusion, and corrupted speech. He doesn't burn the world, erodes its grammar. Every lie, no matter how small, assists him. Every mispronounced right gives him room to grow. Thus, the war between good and evil is not dramatic. It is administrative. It is fought in syllables, intonations, and the timing of chance. Even death is handled within this framework. The dead are unclean and must not be buried or burned, lest they pollute earth or fire. Instead, corpses are placed on stone towers, dakmas, where vultures cleanse the remains. But the most important part of the rite is not what happens to the body. It's what happens in the air, the precise prayers and silent vigils. There is no shouting, no spectacle. Only control of language. Zoroastrianism spread widely in the early centuries BCE and remained the dominant belief system of Persia until the Islamic conquests of the 7th century CE, but even as its political power faded, its internal logic remained remarkably stable. Whether whispered in fire temples or preserved by diaspora communities in India, the Parsis, the belief held that creation was not a finished event, but a structure under constant threat. And the only thing holding it together was language, careful, exact, spoken in its rightful place. The people who call themselves Dine, commonly known as the Navajo, are a large indigenous group whose ancestral lands span what is now the American Southwest, especially parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. Archaeological and linguistic evidence suggests that their ancestors, part of the larger Athabaskan language family, migrated from northwestern Canada and Alaska into the Southwest sometime between 1000 and 1500 CE as they moved. They adapted to new environments and absorbed elements from neighboring Puebloan cultures, including farming techniques, ceremonial structures, and aspects of cosmology. But the core of their worldview remained distinct, a complex oral system that described existence as layered, dynamic and fragile, shaped and sustained through the precision of speech, song, and ritual. Central to this system is the Dine Bahan, the story of the people. It is not a single text, but an oral narrative passed down through generations of trained singers and knowledge keepers. It lays out how the world came to be, not through sudden creation, but through a gradual, often difficult emergence from earlier, less stable worlds. These lower worlds are imagined as real realms that existed before this one, each filled with beings and forces that helped, hindered, or reshaped the people as they moved upward. The narrative doesn't center on divine war or cosmic accident. Instead, it focuses on transformation through negotiation, responsibility, and ceremonial speech. Entry into each new world is only possible after balance is restored. Balance is always achieved through the correct use of language. The Dine are not placed into the world, they rise into it. In the first world, they are insect-like beings, existing in darkness and disorder. In the second and third worlds, they become more humanoid, but remain morally and socially immature. Each world ends in imbalance, theft, infidelity, deception, yet they are not cast out. They must petition the guardians of the next world through song, ritual, and dialogue. In these transitions, moral readiness and spoken precision are what allow them to ascend. By the time they reach the current fifth world, the surface world, they do so with ceremonial knowledge already in hand. From this point forward, their lives are lived in a cosmos that must be constantly stabilized. The concept of hazo, translated loosely as harmony, beauty, or balance, defines the ideal state of existence. But hazo is not static. It is always at risk of being disrupted by death, illness, imbalance, or misbehavior. The primary tool to restore it is speech. Ceremonial chants, stories, and songs are not merely artistic expressions. They are technologies of repair. There are over 20 major chantways, each with its own songs, prayers, and accompanying rituals. The most widely known include the Blessing Way and the Enemy Way. The former is used to promote health, fertility, and harmony. The latter to cleanse spiritual contamination after contact with death or conflict. These chantways can take days to perform, requiring precise recitation of thousands of lines. Only trained ceremonial specialists, sometimes called Hetalia singers or medicine people, are allowed to perform them. Every tone, pause, and phrase is memorized and rehearsed. The oral transmission is rigorous, not for tradition's sake, but because the chants are believed to shape the world they describe. Mistake is not just incorrect, it is dangerous. Sand paintings, which accompany many ceremonies, operate under the same principles. They are created using colored powders, pollen, and crushed minerals to depict sacred patterns, deities, and symbolic narratives. But these images are not decorative. They are living maps. A sick person is placed at their center. The chant is sung around them, and the image, made correctly, becomes a temporary conduit through which harmony flows. When the ritual ends, the painting is destroyed. Its power is specific to the time, space, and words that gave it form. Stories, even outside of formal rituals, retain this performative power. The journey of the twin heroes, Monster Slayer and Born for Water, is one of the most frequently told. These twins travel through sacred landscapes to rid the world of monsters and establish moral order. But their weapons are not swords. They're gifts of knowledge and speech given by the holy people. They succeed not by force, but by knowing how to speak correctly to the forces they encounter. Their story is retold because it models how creation is continued through word and wisdom. The telling itself becomes a reinforcement of Hezo. Even geography participates in this logic. The four sacred mountains, Blanca Peak, Mount Taylor, San Francisco Peaks, and Hesperus Mountain, mark the spiritual boundaries of the Navajo homeland. Facing east toward the sunrise is a recurring motif in ritual structure. Chants are often begun at dawn, the sun's first light acting as a signal that the words spoken will reach their full efficacy. Movement, breath, and direction are encoded into the performance of belief. A ceremony is not just a prayer, it is a reenactment of creation. Importantly, the holy people are not detached deities. They are deeply involved but conditional in their assistance. They gave songs and rituals to the dying, but with a warning: these tools only work if kept intact. Speech must be learned, remembered, and performed with care. Forgetting is not just cultural loss, it is spiritual collapse. This is why the training of ceremonial specialists is lifelong. It is not enough to know the words, we must live them, practice them, and hold them in exact form. Illness, misfortune, and even conflict are seen not as random events, but as signs that balance has been disturbed. The response is not exorcism or punishment. It is recitation. Words become medicine. The patient is not just treated, they are repositioned within the cosmic order through chant. This idea underlies the holistic nature of many Navajo healing ceremonies, that no part of the body, the land, or the spirit can be separated from the story it lives in by the 18th and 19th centuries. As European and American expansion pushed westward, many of these ceremonial traditions were suppressed or interrupted. Boarding schools, Christian missions, and land dispossession damaged the transmission of oral knowledge. Yet the resilience of the chantways passed down in families and among elders preserved much of the structure. Today, many dying families continue these practices not as relics, but as living systems of care, alignment, and survival. For the Navajo, creation was not a single event, but a continuous responsibility. Speech is not merely descriptive, it is engineering. And reality, like a house, must be maintained by the ones who live in it. When the world cracks, it is not fixed by force, it is fixed by the right word in the right place, spoken at the right time. The Ambori are the indigenous Polynesian people of Aotearoa, New Zealand, whose ancestors arrived by ocean-going canoes from east. Polynesia around 1250 to 1300 CE, these migrations were part of the larger Polynesian expansion across the Pacific, one of the most extraordinary navigational feats in human history. The people who settled Aotearoa brought with them an elaborate system of beliefs, genealogies, and cosmologies that they adapted to the new land, a colder, more forested place, than the tropical islands they came from. Their oral tradition remained central, preserved through Wakapapa genealogy, Karakia, incantation, and Wakatok, proverbs. At the heart of their worldview was a cosmological structure in which sound, separation, and naming were tools of creation, and speaking the world into being was not metaphor, but fact. The Ambori understanding of the world begins not with a god or a bang, but with a space called Te Kori, the void, a realm of potential. It is followed by Te Por, the long night, or the realm of becoming, through which the cosmos slowly stirs. This is not a chaotic state, it is gestational. From Te Por comes form, and from form comes Ranji the Sky Father, and Papa the Earth Mother, whose bodies are locked together in a tight, dark embrace. All of creation is held between them, stifled in shadow. Their children, primal beings representing forest, wind, sea, war, and cultivated food, are born into this cramped darkness. They whisper and argue among themselves. The world has not yet been made because the world is still enclosed. It is not action but dialogue that begins the process of creation. The gods debate. Each has a voice. Eventually, Teen, god of the forest and growth, proposes to separate their parents. This moment is not violent. It is conceptual. The world begins when someone articulates the need for space, light, and breath. Teen forces Ranji and Papa apart, and in doing so, brings the world into form. The act is physical, but it only follows the clarity of speech. Teen's success becomes the basis for all later creation. What follows is not automatic. It must be spoken. Teen goes on to shape the first human Hainahu 1, the earth formed, woman from clay. But again, she does not come to life until he breathes words into her. Life arrives not with touch, but with voice. From this act, language and genealogy entwine. All people are descended from Teen and Hein. Their line is spoken into being. Spoken lineages, Wekapapa, are the foundation of Maori identity. Wekapapa is more than ancestry. It is the structure of reality, links everything. People, gods, birds, rocks, rivers, and a network of names and remembered lines. To recite Wakapapa is not simply to honor one's ancestors. It is to activate a map of how the universe is connected. These genealogies are vast, memorized with precision, and spoken aloud in ceremonies, introductions, and negotiations. Forgetting a link, misplacing a name, or speaking out of turn is not just a social error. It risks breaking continuity with the spiritual order. In this cosmology, to know the world is to speak it rightly. Mataranga, Mibori. Body of knowledge is largely oral. Stories are not just told. They are embedded in Waiata songs, haka, chants, and karakia incantations. Each form has rules. Karakia, in particular, are sacred texts recited before planting, sailing, hunting, or performing rites. They do not ask for permission. They establish conditions. The words themselves are agents. They shape what follows. To speak a karakia is not to hope, it is to set a structure in motion. The physical world in this system is never separate from the spoken. Mountains, rivers, and coasts have ancestral names. These are not labels. They are identities. Changing or forgetting, a name unthreads part of the world. This is why place names carry histories, conflicts, and spiritual weight. Colonization, which replaced many of these names with European ones, was not just territorial. It was cosmological damage. It severed the world from the words that held it. Even in daily interaction, the Mbori emphasize verbal ritual. Formal. Greetings, Mahi, farewells, and acknowledgments all follow patterns that establish respect, order, and connection. In traditional meetings Hui, the opening speeches are carefully structured, often beginning with karanga, a ceremonial call between hosts and visitors, and followed by speeches that include ancestral references, genealogies, and place names. These are not formalities, they are reconnections. They re-establish where each person stands within the living web of the world Ha. Moko traditional tattooing and carving follow the same principle. They are not decorations but inscriptions, a visible extension of spoken lineage. The act of carving or tattooing is often accompanied by chant. The pattern, like a phrase, is exact. The tool, be it chisel or tongue, must follow it correctly. If it doesn't, the result is not simply flawed art. It is broken continuity in times of death. 2. Language maintains its role. Tanjahanga. The Mbori funeral process is an extended, structured event centered around the sharing of stories, chants, and speeches. The dead are not silently mourned. They are spoken to. They are farewelled by name, lineage, and deed. These words are not comfort, they are structure. They ease the transition between worlds. Even at the edge of life, a voice holds the boundary. The historical suppression of Mbori language and culture during colonization, especially throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, severely disrupted this oral framework. Children were punished. For speaking their language in schools, rituals were discouraged. Karakia were replaced with church prayers. And yet, much of the system endured underground, in families and on Maori community meeting grounds. In recent decades, a cultural resurgence has brought renewed emphasis on the oral tradition. and with it, the recognition that belief and speech remain inseparable. In embori cosmology, the world begins with sound and takes shape through articulation. It is separated, ordered, and animated by word. Every part of nature, mountain, wind, child, ocean, is part of a spoken chain. To exist is to be named. To know is to speak. And to maintain the world, one must speak it rightly again, and again, in the rhythm that echoes back to the first breath in the dark. Each of these systems, the one born in the highlands of ancient Iran, the one that traveled down through the Canadian taiga to the red mesas of the Southwest, and the one that sailed across open ocean to settle in the volcanic valleys of Aotearoa, appears at first to be unrelated. Their landscapes are different. Their languages share no roots. Their rituals are shaped by climate, migration, war, and memory. One grew inside an empire, one in resistance to one in navigation of isolation. Their symbols do not match. Their cosmologies spiral in unique directions, and yet the deeper architecture aligns. In each system, the world begins not with a blow or a birth, but with a boundary, a distinction, an idea made clear through speech. Creation is not a single act, but a structured emergence from potential to form, from thought to matter, and it always passes through the mouth. The first true actions are conversations, and the continuation of the world depends on their repetition. Each system believes that words are not passive. They are not descriptions or ornaments. They are agents. In all three, recitation is not for the gods. It is for the structure of reality itself. In each, memory is sacred because forgetting is collapse, and precision is holy because a misstep is not just wrong, it is dangerous. Each system protects its words with training. Whether priest, Hadali, or Tohunga, the person who speaks on behalf of the world must be exact, not eloquent, not creative. Exact. Because a single flawed word is not just a failed ritual, it is a break in the line between worlds. In all three, language is not made sacred by metaphor. It is sacred because it is functional. It does something, repairs, maintains, wards off, connects. In the fire temples of Yazd, in the hogans of the Dine, and on the carved meeting houses of the Maori, the chant is not a symbol. It is a mechanism. Each system even imagines the moral path in linguistic terms. Right? Speech is not just civility. It is cosmological health. Lying is not only a social sign, it is a metaphysical infection. And silence, when necessary, is a form of respect for the boundary between the known and the not yet spoken. All three worldviews could have formed with other tools, with thunder, violence, or dream. Instead, they chose voice, and that choice, made independently in different corners of the world, hints at something beyond coincidence. It suggests that when human beings attempt to describe how things began and how they are kept going, they often find the same answer waiting in their mouths. The word came first, and the world followed.